The Last of Us Season 2 has fallen off a cliff, and I think that's being merciful if I'm being honest. Somehow this show has proven how poor the writing of the game actually was, even more than I originally thought it to be. Mostly because with the games, at least in between the bad writing and the moronic scenes, I was able to at least have fun shooting infected or stabbing someone with the pointy end of a knife, but when the game slowed down and let the story breathe, it just kept proving that Naughty Dog really didn't know what they wanted to do with this sequel story-wise. With the TV show, which again, I can't show footage because if I do, HBO will bomb me, kind of like how they tried with the Critical Drinker, who also recently did a video about it too. Here's Drinker's post on HBO nuking his video for using footage where he said, "Hey HBO, are you guys going to unblock my Last of Us video or continue to shamelessly abuse the YouTube copyright system like a bunch of P words? Because really, you're just proving how afraid you are of actual criticism." Since that happened, HBO has reinstated his video after much backlash, but Drinker is right. They truly are terrified of people voicing their opinions on this show's story because they know it's about as dated as the ideologies behind it. Last of Us Season 1 and the first game were about a father and daughter, and the second game is about an angry lesbian who's also in love with a confused woman who's also pregnant as they fight people in Seattle. And like I said, the show, unlike the games, doesn't have that interactivity or, gunplay to really satisfy the player in between moronic dialogue scenes. The show just has the stupid stuff happening, and then it proves that this story completely fails as a standalone tale when it's actually placed outside of the medium that it was created within originally. This episode's plot is pretty simple. Ellie and Dina get to Seattle, and immediately the show tells you what this is all really about. As seen here in screenshots that you're seeing, Ellie and Dina find big flamboyant pride walls and LGBTQ+ representation, even in the post-apocalypse. Wow. Amazing. I also love how the one wall that says pride with a big heart was done in like some weak looking paint that would absolutely have been washed away and destroyed well over 20 years plus of rainstorms and winters and everything else without being maintained. But this mural stands because the LGBTQ+ representation in this show, just like its characters, are so strong. Wow, so current, so timely, but in reality, the show, it's not doing well at all. Anyway, besides them arriving in Seattle, they also go to a music shop where, credit where it's due, the part with Ellie playing guitar in the show, it looks like it was ripped out of the game. These are some of the only moments in the show where I have to give it props, which is that sure, the writing is bad and the actors are kind of whatever, but if there's one thing The Last of Us nails, it's the set designs every single time. And that music shop they're in, it looks like it was ripped straight out of the game. Even the backdrop with the light, it all looks very good. Unfortunately, the writing for the show exists, so even good set designs can't make up for, well, everything else. Besides this, Ellie and Dina then run into some wolves. That's the faction that Abby is a part of. And here, Ellie takes down a fully grown, able-bodied man who's like 180 pounds at least. And this guy struggles to remove Ellie from his back even though she's not even stabbed him yet. She's just holding on to him. But these are our LGBT heroes, ladies and gentlemen, and they have the power of God and anime on their side, I guess. So Ellie, in her 100-pound glory, kills this man because all men must die and women are the bestest in this story. Yeah, this show is like 5 years too late to be praised for what it's pushing here. It's kind of pathetic, but let's keep moving. So what else happens? Oh yeah, Ellie and Dina run into a subway to get away from the wolves. Again, the set design here, ooh, it looks nice too. Then the wolves catch up to them instantly somehow, despite having to enter from the opposite side of the station. How did they do that? Don't ask questions, just consume content, I guess. Anyways, a bunch of infected come out of nowhere looking like a flash mob, and then they kill the wolves. Ellie and Dina then run, which gives us one of the best meme-worthy faces ever, which is this one right here on screen of Ellie shooting an infected. Like, look at her face, dude. This is not a serious show. What are we even doing here, guys? And Dina is then about to get bit as they try to escape, and then Ellie gets in front of her and lets the infected bite her arm instead. They then escape, and again, credit where it's due, they nail the look of the movie theater that Ellie and Dina arrive at because it looks like it was ripped right out of the games too. Dina then points a gun at Ellie, and we reach another moment of stupidity. We all know that Ellie can't get infected, yet Ellie tells Dina she won't turn, and the entire time I'm just thinking, didn't you get bit earlier this season in the stomach already? Just lift your shirt up and show Dina your previous bite mark, and then Dina will drop the gun. But I guess the show and the writers just conveniently forget these things to drum up tension instead. Plus we know, because later on in the episode, Ellie shows Dina how she had to burn her arm to hide another bite mark too, which means that these bites from infected obviously don't heal once the teeth touches the skin. Therefore, the bite mark that's on her stomach would be totally visible. Ellie, what are you doing here? Morons, dude. But the plot continues. Ellie falls asleep, she's fine of course, and then we hit the next oh god why moment where Dina tells Ellie she's pregnant. Ellie then has another meme-worthy moment where she believes that she's going to be a dad, as seen here in this screenshot where she literally says just that. I'm not even kidding. Sorry to burst your bubble, Ellie, but you're not gonna be a dad, you're a woman, so you would be a mom. Because isn't it when a kid has two women raising them that are lesbian, they don't refer to one of them as the dad, they always just say that the kid has two moms instead? Yeah, anyway, so Ellie isn't a dad, plus I'm pretty sure Ellie had no hand in the whole, baby making process here, cause that's not how biology works. But anyways, then we get another cringy moment, which is Ellie and Dina then start making out, and then Ellie starts putting her sweaty, dirty goblin hands in Dina's Schmeat taco as she moans out loud. And at this point, this entire show, it just feels like a fetish project as a bunch of middle-aged people off screen watch two young actors moan and squirm. It is weird, dude. Also, let's circle back for a second with the whole washing your hands thing. I would wager getting any kind of infection in this world would suck major balls, not just the zombie type, but we're talking even like a yeast infection, So Ellie putting her dirty hand that just touched other people that she doesn't even know, and other infected, mind you too, and dirty subway tunnel stuff that hasn't been cleaned in like 20 plus years, and then shoving those same hands in Dina, this is how you get infections, guys. Like, I'm not against people getting busy, but please, for the love of God, at least clean your hands, okay? Just wash your damn hands first at least. The bar is so low, dude. But there's this other problem I always thought was weird, which is Ellie is immune to the infection, but we know that she can infect people, right? Because remember in the first game, and I guess season 1, near the end, when Ellie gets kidnapped by those crazy people and that David guy wants to, what with her in the lodge when Joel is wounded and he's looking for her, and then Ellie bites that one guy when she's in the room with them, and she tells him that he's infected now because she's technically able to administer the virus herself. Wouldn't that same virus be present then in Ellie if she were to kiss someone, or I don't know, share a fork or spoon or water with them too because of the whole spit thing? This is why none of this makes any actual sense. Technically speaking, Ellie shouldn't be touching anyone in any capacity ever. Like when she comes over to eat, she should have her own utensils and cup that she uses and only her kind of deal thing. Yet again, this is just omitted, and instead we just have Ellie with a fresh wound on her arm of an infection no less, shoving her hands, which definitely have cuts on them, into Dina, and then nothing happens to her. I guess infections can happen as long as you're a lesbian or when the plot just demands it. Also, besides Ellie and Dina making stupid decisions, the show also introduces Isaac. He's the leader of the wolves from the games. He's not actually in the game that much, but here he's introduced way earlier on than he was in the game. There's not much to say about him right now. He's a cynical old guy who doesn't trust the Seraphites or Scars, and the whole wolf versus Seraphite thing, like I covered in my video about Neil Druckmann hating Christianity, which is this video here if you haven't seen it on screen. And in that video, I speak on how the Israel versus Palestine war is reflected in the wolves versus Scars in part 2, which by the way, that is 100% confirmed. So they are still doing that idea here too, so I guess the show is now getting more political. Oh joy, I can't wait. And that's episode 4 pretty much. It's basically just a circle jerk session to show how gay these two are the entire time, while men die all around them like usual. As we can see here, IGN gave the episode a whopping 9 out of 10, which is crazy because that was definitely not a 9, but we know why they gave it a 9, because rainbow, pride flags, and tacos were being tossed with dirty hands no less. I guess it doesn't take much to make these activist types slap their hands together like seals, does it? Variety then had this article where they interview the director of this episode, and it's titled The Last of Us director on Dina's bisexuality, introducing Isaac and how the show has inspired her adaptation of The Sims. The director in question is Kate Herron, who is a big fan of the video game, and as it says right here in the article, her deep admiration for how Bella Ramsey and Isabella Merced approached scenes with action and intimacy, what it meant to her as a bisexual to depict Dina's bisexuality, and the thing from The Last of Us that she's applying to her upcoming feature adaptation of another wildly popular video game, The Sims. Oh boy, can't wait for that too. Oh, so the lady also who directed the bisexual scenes is bisexual herself. Wow, big shocker there. Gotta love representation, I guess. By the way, what's the audience score for this show on Metacritic? Let's go look. Oh, would you look at that? Season 2 is currently sitting at a 3.9 out of 10 on Metacritic from users. Damn, well, when I tell you this show has completely lost its audience, especially especially the normies, I mean it. Because this show has just turned into actual propaganda that has hijacked an interesting world and story, kind of like how the games did too. Imagine that. You like the cool cordyceps zombies and the badass smuggler Joel character? Too bad, now you're Ellie, everyone is gay, and the whole game is just a humiliation ritual now for anyone who's played it, or I guess watched this series now too. As you can see here in the interview, Kate Herron exemplifies how important the queer representation is in this season and the show as a whole, saying that you don't often see queer people in roles this big, but from what I can gather, all this has done is make people walk away from the show, because it's no longer what the normal audience signed up for. You lost your star power when Pedro died, and now it's just two far less interesting and less charismatic characters instead for the rest of this entire season and the next one the entire way through. To say this show's viewership and acclaim fell off a cliff, that would not be doing it justice. Look, I knew what was going to happen, okay? I beat the games myself, but I can only imagine how disappointed the average watcher is not knowing anything about this. It's just liberating to see all the criticisms and justified disdain the second game got is being thrown back into the conversation like this again, and proving that when part 2 released, people were not crazy at all. In fact, they were right all along. And this show exemplifies how tired, boring, and frankly annoying these concepts are in media today. The show is far more interested in this romance between these two than the world around them or really anything else. It's instead like a young adult novel that exists in a far more interesting world than what this story is actually about. And like I reported in my previous video on Last of Us Episode 3, Season 2 has lost well over half of its linear viewers already. And I can only imagine it's getting worse with each episode as it goes on too. And oh boy, here's another article from Variety. They're really laying this on thick, aren't they? And it's titled, The Last of Us star Isabel immersed on Dina and Ellie's romance, getting that sex scene right, and LGBTQ plus representation. No one actually thinks I'm queer because no one actually cares. But anyway, you know that meme of Stone Toss where they talk about burgers and how to do an ad for it, and they show two people making out, and then the one guy says, how will this help us sell burgers? And this show is literally that meme in motion pretty much all of the time. I would read you the entire article, but to be honest with you guys, it's nothing that you've really seen before, and I don't want to give you brain damage. It's just Variety glazing up Dina's actor about how important it is to have gay representation in media, and how Dina is a ray of light in Ellie's awful life. Also, fun fact, the scenes in the latest episode where they're in the tunnel and the zombie horde shows up, that apparently took a week to film, and they also filled the set with cow manure to get the texture of the apocalypse and all like the grainy parts right. So yeah, that means that the actor spent a week in an enclosed space where it smelled like literal crap pretty much. So there's a fun fact for you to bring up at parties, I guess, if you want. Also, Dina's actor spoke on how her and Bella Ramsey made a secret sign language that they used to communicate around staff members without talking on set, and they would vocally protest against any physical work they weren't paid to do. So the article does have nuggets of info, but the overall gist of it is that this show is undoubtedly 100% queer infused, and the major selling point in HBO's mind is just how gay it all really is. And like I said in other videos, the second game sold 40% less than the first, which is why Naughty Dog has re-released part 2 in some capacity about 4 times in the past 5 years of the game existing. And the only reason why a studio would do that is simple. It's because the original release did not make enough money to justify its own existence. So instead, they keep re-releasing the game or remastering it like they already have, because it's obvious that people don't want the second game like they did the first one, and I mean, who can blame them? But you know your game is cooked when you're releasing the same game as almost as many years the game has existed for commercial product. That is not the signs of a healthy game, it just isn't. And like I said, the show is now doing abysmally bad in comparison to season 1. The first season grew in viewership episode over episode, you know, as good shows tend to do, but season 2 is having the opposite effect. And I'm wondering, by the time season 3 is out, will people even care about this anymore? I sincerely doubt it. And like I said, seeing the show's episodes get positively reviewed by critics but lambasted by actual viewers is the telltale sign that this is a show not really made for the audience in mind, but instead is just a vanity project meant to satiate other terminally out of touch types as well. IGN loves this show, but I mean, of course they do. It stars a bunch of queer women killing men. You basically serve them their wet dreams on a plate. And then you wonder why nobody takes any of these websites seriously anymore pretty much. I think the thing that makes me sigh the loudest is that how can Hollywood keep pushing this slop and think that we really want this of all things again and again? Like, seriously? We're doing this again? This sort of story has been thrusted down people's throats before, and the majority of people just walked away. It's not because people are homophobic, although I'm sure some are, let's not lie here, but the actual reasoning I think is a mixture of exhaustion and, more importantly, sheer apathy. It's like violence in video games or horror movies, you know? The first few times you see it, wow, it's visceral and really scary. Oh, and it makes you jump. But then when the same monster or the same blood effects come out the 50th or 100th time, yeah, you become desensitized to it all. And that's what's happening with the show and others like it, is that same idea pretty much, but replace the gore with gayness, and yeah, it's the same thing. And look, I'm not saying being gay is bad, but these ideas have been forced upon viewers so often that it has turned the general audience into apathetic viewers, and that's the worst thing that can happen to your TV show, movie, or game. It's not that they love or hate it, but that they simply don't care anymore. And I wager most people would rather watch a video like this instead of spending an hour or multiple hours watching this entire show to find out what happens instead. And at this point, these studios need to start asking themselves the hard questions here, which is, are they making content to be consumed by viewers, or are they just making content for people like me to make content about their content instead, because nobody wants to bother watching their slop? I think this show, in my opinion, is veering in that second direction, because at this point, the only people watching this seem to be either stan accounts that are obsessed with Ellie and Dina, or idiots like myself who suffer through it so I can report to you guys what happens on the front lines. It just feels like a complete race to the bottom, if you will. Like they're spending all of this money making this show and it's just not being received the way that they wanted it to. I genuinely believe that the show will get celebrated come award season, maybe to a degree. I wouldn't really be surprised if this ends up winning like best makeup or set design maybe. But I sincerely doubt anyone on this show is going to win an Emmy for their performance, especially with how cutthroat and talented other shows are right now that could compete with this one instead. But at what point do we realize that this sort of content, this messaging and whatnot, is no longer what people want, or frankly, dare I say, wanted to begin with? Because this is not working. HBO is probably kicking themselves knowing that they greenlit and signed the papers for season 3 already. Especially seeing how poorly this is performing, and in comparison to season 1, knowing that they have to commit however many millions of dollars in man hours to produce yet another season of a show that is frankly just going to keep dwindling in viewership numbers, until eventually its audience is going to be a bunch of girls who live in their rooms tweeting about Ellie and my stupid ass, and that's pretty much it. And I feel like the dad who took their kid to a concert from some pop star that they don't know about, and they're just surrounded by other children. Like, I shouldn't be here, and all I can think is, man, this music sucks and these kids' taste in music is just awful. And how much I wish I wasn't currently watching this train wreck unfold when I could be doing something more productive instead. But I am a masochist when it comes to YouTube though, so don't worry, I'll stick it through and watch all of this just so that you don't have to. But this show has proven that without the objectively fun gameplay to support it, The Last of Us Part 2 story is a complete and utter mess, and that's putting it lightly. Finally, I want to end this video with this article that spoke about the homophobe guy Seth from episode 2, or was it 3? Doesn't matter. Anyway, it's from Polygon. Yeah, the same website that just died, which kind of proves how poetic this article is, and it's titled, "The Last of Us Post-Apocalyptic Homophobia Reveals Its Shallow Setting, the story about tribalism that refuses to think about tribalism." Polygon states here that Seth is bad because he called Ellie and Dina a lesphobic slur, as Polygon writes here, as you can see. I didn't even know that was a real term. They're just making up things now, I guess. And in case you don't remember, the Seth guy appears in the games too. It's during the New Year's dance when Ellie kisses Dina for the first time and they're dancing together, and Seth is the old guy in the game and I guess show now, who tells them to stop being queer, you know, in front of everyone, and then this moment is taken as a big gotcha, like, oh, this guy is a bigot. He does end up apologizing to Ellie in the game, and he does the same thing in the show. Both times Ellie acts like a child and kind of refuses his condolences, which more so just shows, you know, more about her maturity level than anything else. And Polygon's issue here, however, is that HBO should have not redeemed Seth in the TV show because he is the town bigot and he's white. Therefore, he should be lambasted and ridiculed until he dies one day. But instead in the show, even which is a change by the way, Seth is actually shown to be helping Ellie and Dina when they plan to leave to avenge Joel. And actually in the show, nobody helps Ellie in her revenge against Joel except for Seth, and Polygon doesn't like this because this now means that Ellie's entire revenge quest hinges on the help of this man they hate because he doesn't approve of Ellie being gay, which I found hilarious but laughably on brand, because of course the old guy who lived before the apocalypse, before social media and all the other stuff, would be the only one that understands that getting revenge is the morally right thing to do in this situation. And it actually shows that Seth, who's based in more ways than one, is the only person willing to help Ellie, and it actually shows the maturity of his character, and Polygon proves why they got killed and sold off too. Because Seth feels believable. He's flawed, sure, he has views people may not like, but it doesn't mean he can't help people either. And Polygon is mad because Seth isn't two-dimensional in a way that they perceive him to be, but instead he's a real person who is more than just their opinion on one thing you may disagree with them on. And it's incredibly hilarious that without Seth's help, Ellie and Dina in the show anyways would not have been able to make it to Seattle, and Seth even gives Ellie a better sniper rifle in the show, and bullets and medical items and even food. The guy is actually the only real one in this entire Jackson community, and Polygon is livid about it because he disagrees with them on this one thing. And I don't mean he's real because he's homophobic. No, he's real because he's the only one who understands Ellie's revenge and wants to help her. He even stands up at the town meeting during that whole thing in the show and basically calls everybody weaklings. Remind me again why I'm supposed to hate Seth exactly? This guy has more balls than everyone else in that room combined, and he puts his guns and supplies where his mouth is. And where exactly were all the they-themers giving Ellie and Dina their supplies to hunt Joe? Oh, they didn't. Well, imagine that. As Polygon states here very angrily, The Last of Us seems to want me to believe that the only overt prejudice to have survived the apocalypse is queerphobia. But prejudice is not set dressing, not a one-off tool to construct a character beat, but when the folks behind the show insist on including one and handed waving others, they're telling on themselves. Ah, you see, you can never satisfy these types no matter what you do. You could give these kinds of writers every win you can muster, but when you give them one thing they don't want and magically suddenly everything that you've done for them up until that point, it just vanishes instantly. Interesting, isn't it? And to the surprise of nobody, the writer of this article, whose name is Susanna Polo, don't harass them by the way, is also the founder of the Mary Sue, which is a pro-feminist website that also got hit by mass layoffs recently too. So it's really no wonder that someone this delusional is mad that the conservative-based old guy is not as evil as she wants him to be, because they live in a bubble where they're told that everyone who isn't like them is the literal devil themselves. This Polygon writer then says this: "It is definitionally bigoted behavior for a man to harbor such distaste for queer people in his heart that cannot see a couple of kids get a little smoochy while they slow dance without getting so angry that his mouth opens and slurs two members of his own close-knit community in public." Yeah, well, the guy is old and he's from another time. He's not exactly someone who, like you, probably did study something useless like gender studies in college, which I mean, you write for Polygon and Mary Sue, so it makes sense. And he probably instead, learned a trade or something like that and could still find work today too, which you probably couldn't, let's be real, but anyways. The point is that Polygon being mad that a conservative guy is not as bad as they view him as is actually hilarious that they even wrote an entire article about it too. They then say this: "The Last of Us is about nothing but in-group, out-of-group definitions. This is the entire thesis of its apocalypse. That the undead as a concern are a close second to the post-apocalyptic dissolution of humanity into various violent, factionalized groups who each have their own sense of us versus the rest of the world. Fedra, the Fireflies, the ruthless Pittsburgh, Kansas City revolutionaries, the Scars, the Wolves, and even Jackson, albeit in a softer, grayer way, and yet pretty much every one of these groups respects the ability of women and people of color to fight and lead." Oh my god, dude, listen to these groups, how they're all awful, but I draw the line at queerphobia is a hell of a take if you ask me. Yeah, I don't know, man, I don't think Seth not liking gay people is that much of a big deal, but it is hilariously based that he is the only one that actually helps Ellie in the show. And I love that it pissed off people like this more so than anything else, because it just causes these types to tell on themselves time and again. I could keep reading this article, but honestly, I'll keep this one in my back pocket if you don't mind for now. I think I'll come back to this article maybe for next week's episode, because I got a feeling the rest that's being said here will still be relevant even then. And let's be real, this video might be getting too long anyways, but for now, that's the latest on The Last of Us Season 2. People are walking away, the show is now just a humiliation ritual about queerness, and Seth is unironically the best character in the TV show now, cause he's the only one who knows what's up and actually takes action, unlike the so-called allies of people like Ellie and more. Oh, The Last of Us, what an infinite well of stupidity you've become. Shame it had to be turned into this, but what can you do really, I guess. As always, thanks for watching, let me know what you think, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.